Hello and welcome to the latest in Inlet Asia's Empower Women series. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Andrea Buetler, Director Energy Transition Sales Asia Pacific at Worley. Andrea, it's good to speak to you again. Thank you very much for agreeing to chat. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good. Yep, so we're going to go ahead and chat a little bit about your experience and also what you think that it would be beneficial for our inlet users and members to hear about Worley. So starting with the first question and jumping right into it, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and a couple of Worley solutions or insights that would be interesting to our inlet community?
Sure. First of all, thanks for having me. I'm delighted to be part of this interview. So my name is Andrea. I'm a mother of a 2.5-year-old daughter, an economist by background, and I've actually lived in 8 different countries throughout my career, mostly in Southeast Asia. I'd call myself an adventurer, have a passion for outdoor sports, but also love food. So let's get into it. What does Worley do? What solutions are we providing? And I'm going to focus on close to home, Southeast Asia. So a couple of projects I want to highlight. One is a offshore wind project. So we've just actually been completed an assignment for an international offshore wind developer. And we've analyzed the supply chain of 2 countries in particular, which will help them realize their growth ambition in offshore wind across Asia. The second opportunity or the second project is more around the role of gas, as generally is acknowledged as a transition fuel. So with lesser emissions than coal and its versatility, Southeast Asia, gas is a very important energy vector for Southeast Asia. So what Worley has done for across a number of countries, we support developers in building liquid natural gas terminals, import terminals, but also regasification. We provide the conceptual design, feasibility studies, and we then accompany the project throughout its different stages of design and construction. Now, another project, it's outside Southeast Asia, but I think it's very relevant for Southeast Asia, is where we've gotten involved in decarbonizing power generation plants. So the client is Drax Power Station in the UK, and Drax Power Station has a 2.6 gigawatt biomass plant and a 1.29 gigawatt of a coal-fired power station. Now, the work we do actually helps to save 4 million tons of CO2 every year by capturing the CO2 post combustion. Our work has included plant layout, cost estimation, schedule, and now we are involved in FEED, detailed engineering, procurement, and construction. I hope that gives a flavor, Melissa.
It does. No, that was the perfect introduction. So thank you. I also am a foodie as well, so we can relate on that front for sure. Yeah, and so we were kind of already touching upon energy transition. So what is your advice to people that would like to get involved in energy transition currently?
Yeah, that's a very relevant question. We get that question actually a lot also internally as the industry in itself, but also we as an organization, we are going through a transformation. So the first thing is that you look at the coming decades in form of a industrial revolution. Think of the impact of energy transition similar to the impact of what a steam engine has had on the industries back when it was invented, or the discovery of light bulbs. That's a way we actually encourage people to look at it. In terms of the behaviors, what we recommend is to be curious, to be entrepreneurial, and think in platforms. Don't think less transactional, but think about becoming part of a collective effort. Think big, bold, but remain grounded and realistic. Technology is also a key part of it. We view technology as a key enabler to have the scale required to solve that major problem or the major challenges we have ahead of us. But also try to engage with a similar outside the box thinking used by inventors such as the apps of Uber. Get involved wherever you can. Join groups, events, conversations. Get educated. Don't wait until someone asks you to join. Find a topic that you personally care about, and that can be extremely diverse, very different. But pick that topic which you personally care about, and enroll others to support you in your idea. But most importantly, don't just completely quit what you've been doing so far. Don't think that you just have to up and leave your current role and start all over in energy transition. I personally see a lot of top talent from the inside the industrial organizations themselves coming out. We do believe to make to take on the challenge ahead of other in energy transition, we need that expertise from within those industries. So try to build your niche, or try to build your niche in energy transition from your existing knowledge base.
Very good advice. I'm sure that'd be very helpful too for a lot of our members. So when we're thinking of access to capital, and if we are potentially going to change over some of the plants and what have you in energy transition, has access to capital or the availability of capital developed over the last 12 months? Are there smaller renewable projects increasingly attractive to traditional investors, for example? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah, it's a very interesting question, and it's not a straightforward answer. It's shows how volatile or how changing the market is, but also the fragmentation of it. So the past year has actually had a significant impact on corporation, governments, and investors alike. So the trigger has been China, EU, Japan, and South Korea committing to net zero, and the US rejoining the Paris Agreement. Amongst many other things, it has pushed disclosure on climate change related risks. And I'm going to give you an example of one of the most well-known financial institution, which is BlackRock. So BlackRock has published sometime last year sustainability actions, and it has gone viral. It has gone around. It has reached global news. But they also have announced that they helped clients allocate about 39 billion to sustainable investment strategies, for instance, and that's unprecedented. With respect to Southeast Asia, we have seen all major banks adopt Equator Principles 4, and that are at the moment the most stringent standards the financial institutions are adhering to, and it will curb investment in coal-fired power plants, and it will shift naturally the focus towards more cleaner technologies. Now, that all to come back to your question, that actually all leads to a greater appetite to finance clean energy or clean technology projects. However, the access to those projects may not be equal across the board for everybody. The financial market in itself is also very competitive. And for instance, particularly in Southeast Asia, we see that certain local financial markets, they've been gaining increased maturity together with more experience in delivering the projects as such. And that increasingly is growing and actually helps those local markets to absorb more and more larger renewable energy projects. Now, overall, what's the value we are talking about? What's the investment required versus what's available? Now, research estimates show that overall renewable energy investments overtakes investments in oil and gas spending in 2021. And that will lead to a total investment opportunities of up to $26 trillion by 2030 in low carbon technologies. Now, the figure may differ depending the source, but that's about where between 16 and 26 trillion dollars is where the estimates lie.
Great, thank you for answering that. Yeah, I think it's a really interesting time because we are seeing obviously the change in just the community of wanting to potentially go greener, but where is the investing coming from, and how long is it going to take to actually have that investment in hand to make a change? So yeah, we shall see. Moving on to the next. So we were just kind of touching base upon oil and gas. So how do you see companies traditionally in the oil and gas sector adapting to the energy transition itself?
Yeah, we see different approaches in the market. What is common is that all companies face unprecedented pressure from shareholders to reduce not just cost, but also their scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions to stay competitive in this very fast evolving energy market. Over the short term, the demand impacts of COVID-19 has meant some companies have decided to close or repurpose refineries. They also have decided for new exploration projects to be delayed. And that has led to billions of dollars of capital investment to be cancelled. It's estimated that about 30% of the planned capital investments by those oil and gas companies have actually been cancelled. Now, shorter term, the short-term demand impact has also accelerated the transition and meant that companies are focusing more on their own energy transition journey across a few horizons. So what does it actually mean? The priority is to stay competitive and looking for the quick wins in decarbonizing their value chain to maintain the valuations of the companies. Now, the quick wins are through energy efficiency initiatives, alongside with strategic procurement of low emission sources. So that means instead of purchasing electricity from the coal-fired power station next door, you decide that you want to buy the electricity from a renewable energy provider. Now, a separate focus we are noticing is that a sustained trend of financial engineering. So what does that mean? That means that traditional oil and gas companies, they strategically divest their non-core infrastructure to assist in finding energy transition journey. So this may become harder as the appetite for investors is changing in this space, primarily linked to carbon risk exposure. So what does that mean for long term? Over the long term, the focus remains on better understanding the carbon risk exposure across the value chain, because this is right now what more investors are interested in. It's not just about what you sell, but what's the carbon footprint and what's your exposure in the carbon footprint right now. So slowly we are seeing the evolution of carbon tracking. So that includes fugitive emissions across the value chain that will ultimately lead to a more measurable and transparent, but also verified quantification of CO2 intensity of products that may then impact the tradability on the market. So it's like right now you may go to the supermarket and you see a fruit or vegetable saying being organic. So if in the future you wanna buy electricity or you wanna buy an LNG, you wanna buy gas, that you'll have an option between a gas and you've got an option of green gas. So that's the trend towards it. So once this understanding of the carbon risk across the value chain is better understood, the task then turns to decarbonizing it by looking at the various technologies and techniques which exist. And that's actually where then the tricky part comes in. There is certainly not a one size fits for all, which is why there is like kind of a sustained level of uncertainty as what is the best first step along the energy transition journey.
Fair enough. Yep, there definitely seems to be a little bit of uncertainty now, but I think we'll definitely get there eventually. It's just going to take a lot of planning and it'll be fine, but we'll get there. So thank you so much for the insights you've provided already, Andrea. And I think maybe we shall then start chatting a little bit more with regards to the Empower Women series, since this is our very first episode. So again, thank you so much for joining. So with regards to your experience within the power sector, what would you have told yourself years ago when you just started?
That's a while back.
Just a year ago.
About maybe 2009. It's where I decided to enter the new renewable energy sector. The simple answer is back then is that I was looking for something I can relate to, which fascinates me from a technology perspective. Now, in hindsight and reflecting on it a bit, I was looking for a work environment where back then, as a 25-year-old, I could have the most impact. So I grew up, I was born and I grew up in Switzerland. It's a very mature and stable environment. And the question I asked myself, where is currently change happening? Because where change is happening is an opportunity, it's an easier opportunity for me as a 25-year-old to influence. It's easier to find a niche in a changing environment in comparison to a very mature, settled environment. And renewable energy ticked that box. I would not have entered the industry as such if it was about joining a conventional power plant. It was really that element of solar PV back then, which was big time in the rise. Then the lead to understanding that I need to it went further from Switzerland to Asia, where I felt I need to be closer to the market. I understood that the growth in Asia in renewables is going to be multifold in comparison to Switzerland. And that's where then I decided to pack my bag. 28 kilograms that was the maximum I could take. And I moved to Southeast Asia.
Beautiful. Well, it's definitely worked out well for you. So that was a good decision. And moving on, can you describe the differences in working in the power sector as a woman compared to other industries? Just based on your experience, of course.
Yeah, sure. So first, we need to acknowledge that the power sector back in 2016 had only 11% of women in senior roles.
Wow.
As per World Economic Forum, it was estimated that by 2020, that should be about 20%. Now, it's also actually evident that this percentage is declining. So with junior roles, it's a bit higher, but then as it gets to more senior roles, that the percentage declines. Now, just in contrast, because you're asking about the experience of different industries, healthcare sector has 28%, media, entertainment, and information has 33%. Now, generally, there is a long way to go across all industries to meet a gender balance in the workforce. But I did spend most of my time in the power, energy, and infrastructure sector, so I cannot speak for another industry. But what I can do is I can give you an example of where I've worked with teams where there was more diversity, and which were more inclusive in nature, not just gender. So the difference of working with teams that represent greater diversity is the diversity of thoughts brought in by each individual. So having a group of individuals with similar backgrounds and approaches, solving a problem is likely to lead to less creative, innovative, or out-of-the-box thinking type of solution. So it's the same. If you've got a similar type of individuals with a similar way of looking or solving a problem, the outcome is automatically expected to be less diverse. So more diversity under the assumption of equal treatment of all, freedom of expressing of thoughts, and absence of any fears or mistakes, fear of making mistakes or fear of saying something not fear of saying something perceived as wrong, lead overall to better outcomes, which will lead to better business outcomes. So having said that, it also requires a different engagement with the team, and it requires a different leadership style, which is very important to promote at the executive leadership level more diversity overall.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I also think it's very interesting when we add the layer of also working in Singapore. And I had just spoken with a woman yesterday with regards to in the power sector as well. And she had said that actually she didn't feel at all that her gender had affected at all her role within the power sector. And I think that that's something that maybe is more apparent in Singapore as maybe in other countries, which obviously we're very lucky to live here. So I thought that was an interesting like added layer to the conversation as well. But thank you. So moving on to our last question, actually, why do you believe allyship, and this kind of plays into what we were just speaking of, plays an essential part in gender inclusivity in the power sector?
So the concept of allyship is, from my viewpoint, a very effective mechanism to support individuals realize new career opportunities in general. It helps to overcome fears or anxieties, but very importantly, it just helps to build a wider network. It's a very practical and hands-on activity to overcome biases and some of the hurdles that prevent us from greater equality between men and women, between different cultural backgrounds, language, but also differently abled individuals. It's by far not the only solution, but one I have experienced myself as being very effective. So an ally can mean different things. It can be a mentor, it can be a coach, it can be a sponsor, and someone who takes the time to listen, watch, and deepen an understanding first with you in the center. And I think that's very important. While the specific role and relationship with the ally is a choice between the two individuals, from my own experience, an ally is someone who can create a safe space to speak about career opportunities, uncertainties, fears, about a specific situation where something has not been right, but it's not clear to who to talk about it. From a professional career development perspective, it may be someone that helps identify a particular skill gap, supports articulating a personal and professional vision, and may also be helpful in opening a network or a point to opportunities out there for you. So I believe each of us has actually a responsibility to be an ally to others. And I certainly want to thank the allies I've had in my life. And I'm actually also a mentor to some individuals. So it's also a give and take. And I feel it's very important in today's world. But I also will put it to the audience that we could ask ourselves, how could I do more to support this cause and be a strong ally to others?
Perfect. Yep. I definitely think that's a wonderful way to end. And I think in general, it's, it's just a matter of coming together and having a collaboration with regards to the workplace. I think that that's really the key just in general moving forward. But Andrea, I do want to thank you so very much for taking the time to speak with us today. We'll definitely be in touch soon, and have a great rest of your day, everyone.
Thank you so much, Melissa.
Thank you. Take care.